Greetings, brothers and sisters. I probably not going to hear this from anybody else. It's just a brief introduction of what's happening here. Most of you are, left-right paradigm people who don't. Most of my viewers, I think, here are people who don't really buy into the system. But I get occasional right-wing people. Not occasional, regular, but just small amounts of comments, and then once in a while a liberal will find their way to my videos. A Democrat, right? And I dealt with this in a recent video where, people call me black-pilled because I say the system needs to be destroyed, not by us, by God, right? Like it's already, there's, a corrective measure already in place, a divine corrective measure that takes demonic systems and takes all systems, because there's a death process to everything. Everything has its life, every system, every being, everything has its evolutionary process, and you have it's a finite time as a human being, as a system, as a world, as everything. Everything is in this constant state of changing, and death and destruction and creation, and the cycle of destruction creation are always present. But what's happened here in the political process, and I've talked about this with the Democrats, but I haven't really said as much about the Republicans, but it's there. When you have a binary system, a right and a left, a Democrat and Republican or whatever, you're going to have a situation where the animosity and hatred grows so much, and the disdain for the other group grows so much, like a really bad divorce, where both people claim that the other person's evil. Both parties claim that the other party is evil. What the Democratic Party said was that Trump is such a horrible person and president, and everyone who voted for him, the MAGA Republicans as Biden calls them, are horrible people and shouldn't have the right to vote. And even if he wins, they can't let him win. Like, he can't win. He can't win a second term. That is evil taking over, like some kind of Middle-earth Mordor. This is like the Dark Lord Sauron winning. And whatever you do to make sure that doesn't happen, whether you cheat, you lie, you rig the system, you have a psychological operation, COVID, whatever you got to roll out to make sure that doesn't happen, then you do that, right? It just, that was the position Democrats took, that Trump can't win. But the Republicans, the same way, when Biden won, they were saying, not my president, because he's evil and the Democrats are evil. And so there's this, and Trump fed into that from the very beginning. He said everyone who was against him was evil. Trump is like that anyway. Anybody who doesn't like him has got to be evil because he's so narcissistic. And so both sides have taken this position that the other side is evil. That, the other side, no matter what, whether they win fair and square, whatever they cheat, whatever that happens, that they are doing evil and will do evil. And whatever you have to do on your side to disempower them and not let them create whatever evil empire is okay. So that's what's, most Democrats and Republicans think. That if you cheat, you lie, you whatever you have to do, there's no limits to the evil that you can, the negative evil like behaviors you can do to stop the evil that is the other party. And so both are embracing evil, right? And there's this element in the truth community, talking about how evil the Democrats are, how evil the controllers are, or how evil everyone else is, isn't going to change the system. It's just going to make it more evil. You're focusing on evil. You get whatever you meditate on. It's one of the teachings of the Sajmark system. Meditation is receiving. Babaji, the second master of the system, said praying is begging and meditation is receiving. Praying is begging a God. Most people pray in a way, like not everybody, but most people pray in a way begging God to change something on a material level, to make something happen on a material level through prayer, something desirable. So you're begging God, oh, please make this thing happen. Please stop, my husband from dying from cancer. Please, bring my kids back, whatever it is, right? You're begging God to change something on a material level. There's other people who just pray for spiritual, like the strength to endure. Those people at a different level. But meditation is receiving. You meditate on something, and you're calling it to you. And if you spend all your days meditating on how evil the Democrats are, you'll just get more and more of that. Or meditating on how evil Trump is, like the left-wing media. That's all you're going to get, right? Now, I've made it clear that I believe the system is evil in its nature, demonic, and it isn't based in divine principles. So it needs to go for us to be better, and it's having a negative effect on us. But in that, we still have to do our duty, right? We have to, people say I'm black-pilled, but that's not accurate at all, because what I'm saying is this is the problem that the system is, this evil system, the demonic system. And once it is destroyed, and, we'll all be screwed materially for a bit, but it opens the door for change. It opens the door for evolution and for us to, rise up to another level of human consciousness and human expression. And so that's different than being black-pilled. I explained this in a video. But up until that point, when it's destroyed, we still have to participate in the system and do our best to be better. If you're saying all the time, well, the Dems are evil and that's all I want to talk about or think about, then, not only are you part of the problem, but you're not seeing the real issue, right? Let's say you're in a marriage and your ex is evil, and you're getting or your soon-to-be ex is evil, and you're getting a divorce. And if your partner is really evil and a bad person, that means you're going to have to be twice as good for the sake of your kids, right? You can't just dwell on how evil the other person is and say, well, at least I'm better than them. The kids need, you to be like now both parents, and you have to be even better. And if the, opposition party is as evil as you think it is, then you need to focus on you. Then you need to become a saint, right? If the Democrats are demons, then the Republicans should become saints and stop focusing on them and be better. Focus on you becoming a better person, doing higher level work. I mean, that's what needs to be done. If you really want to save the system, then you're going to have to be twice as good. You're going to have to elevate yourself to a higher level to compensate for the evil that's coming from the other side. There's a movie, I think it was like Finding a Friend at the End of the World. It was Steve Carell and, that English girl. I don't remember her name, but you know what it is. Don't care, don't tell me, don't need to know. And like a meteor was going to hit. And I've seen a few movies like this where the end of the earth was inevitable. There's a movie from Australia I saw, I don't know the name of it, where the rest of the world had been destroyed, and they had a day left or whatever, half a day between their destruction. And like, what are you going to do during that time? But if you know that the world's going to be destroyed and these people were behaving and, they were partying and or committing suicide or, whatever it is, and the society broke down. But what you should really do, I mean, in terms of being a godly person, is you fulfill your responsibilities. You keep on doing your job because, society should just keep on going. Death is waiting for all of us. We're all going to die. We know that we're going to die. That doesn't mean you stop, living, right? You work you work and do what you're supposed to do until you die, right? And if the system's going to collapse, yeah, okay, I believe wholeheartedly it will. But until that time, we go forward, and of course we can prepare, spend some of our time and energy preparing and developing skills and having a backup plan. That's great. And connecting to God is something we should always do, which will help with that, connecting to God internally. But you keep on doing what you're doing in the system, right? You don't get to just, call in sick for the rest of your life because the Democrats are going to destroy the world or the Trump is going to destroy the world or whatever. But the important thing to take away from this is the Democrats say that the Republicans suck, and the Republicans say the Democrats suck, and I can say you both suck, right? Like, from, where we're sitting, all of us who can just see it, you guys both suck. And you can say, well, the other side sucks worse, whatever. What difference does that make, right? I mean, the system is collapsing, right? It's imploding. And dwelling on how bad the people suck, or blaming the Democrats, or blaming the Republicans, or the deep state, or the conspiracy theorists, or whatever people want to do, doesn't help at all, right? I mean, it's just, it's the weakest and most pathetic way to deal with what's going on. It's just a lack of personal accountability. Like, okay, but what are you going to do? Like, everyone else sucks, but what are you going to do, right? I can agree with you, people suck. So what are you going to do to, elevate yourself? What are you going to do to get yourself out of that collective suckiness, to step above the common suckiness of the average person and the binary system? And like, that's, something for everyone to think about. The truth community has become almost just like gossip. Like, oh, do you see what they did in Hawaii? Did you see what those guys, do you see what they did in Hawaii? It's just, oh, you know what they're doing? You see what they're doing with the election? Just all this stuff, right? Oh my God, they're censoring us, just constantly dwelling on the evils of others people. And you're as much, you're thinking more about their evil than they're thinking about their evil themselves. You're forming a deeper impression of their evil than they are of their, they're the ones who are committing the evil acts. And so, like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do to separate yourself, or distance yourself from the depraved masses, from the depraved humanity? It's just not enough to sit on the internet and, complain about it and, dwell on this stuff, because, it's probably even worse. You're probably just adding more energy and power to this, demonic acts. Anyways, that's the, introduction. Let me move on to the other stuff here. Okay, I want to cover the Maui stuff first, and then I'm going to get a little bit into the Trump indictment, just the media's coverage, because it's so funny. Rachel Maddow said something that's so hilarious and so absolutely, no ability to self-perceive. And then I want to do a little bit on Kennedy, and then I don't know if there's anything else. But here's the Simpsons predicting Maui, like, of course they always do. So they have a direct energy weapon. Of course, this isn't Maui, it's Springfield. But they start setting fire to all the buildings. So there's Springfield. Looks a lot like Maui, the area that burned down there. I mean, so, there's a lot of this you see in how many times have the Simpsons predicted something. We'll come back to this. Catholic Church miraculously standing after fires reduce Lahaina to ashes. God doesn't abandon his people, is what somebody said.
Liam just reported the city of Lahaina was just about reduced to rubble. Among the ruins, though, something remarkable. The historic Maria Lanakila Catholic Church managed to withstand the flames.
Okay, so Lahaina, and then they bring this priest in here.
Yeah, the church is still standing. For us, it's a real miracle.
It's a miracle. A miracle. God protected the church from direct energy weapons. There's a mirror factory there in front of the church, and everything else got eviscerated. It's a miracle.
This is just for us a wonderful sign that God doesn't abandon his people. So we're very grateful.
He abandoned the rest of the people who died, sure, but not the Catholics in their church. God doesn't abandon Catholics, but everyone else, he fried those other people. Those heathens, those other islanders, those heathens that don't believe in the Catholic Church. I had a wonderful experience with the Catholic Church. My mom used to have prayer meetings with nuns. I didn't have any creepy priests. I had a good upbringing. I value my my early life as a Catholic in terms of giving me enough religious training that I could eventually transcend my religion and do the gratefulness meditation, Sajmarg meditation I'm doing now. So I have no problems with the Catholic Church personally, but we all know people who have. Like, I know many of them, people in Ireland, women who were abused by priests as girls, these things. So to categorize it that somehow you're your church was saved by God, but all these other people fried, right? Did you paint it blue by Maui residents who disobeyed barricades survived fires. Those who disobeyed the barricade road closures during the fires survived the disasters, while many of those who heeded the orders to turn around perished in their cars and homes with no way out. So, this is mainstream news, Yahoo News here. So this is an old report from ABC News.
Weather modification, or cloud seeding.
We can't create the cloud. There has to be an existing storm system.
We just give it a bump.
Yeah.
Garrett Kamens heads up one of the largest cloud seeding companies in the U.S.
Has the desperation in the mega drought made the interest in cloud seeding skyrocket?
Oh, definitely.
There are currently...
Okay, so we know that this is done when I was a kid. There was a baseball movie I was watching, and I think it was the Yankees. Like, it was an old-time movie about baseball. And the Yankees needed the game to get canceled, so the owner paid somebody to seed the clouds, and it rained, and the game was a rain out, which is, cheating, right? But I saw that in movies. This was an old movie when I was a kid, so it was like a, real old-time movie. Okay, so I want to talk about the Lahaina thing again in a moment here, Hawaii. But first, they're talking about, there's rumors that they're going to go back to the lockdowns and mask mandates and things coming to the, end of the summer here. I don't know how much of this is right-wing, truth or propaganda or fear-mongering, or how much legitimacy there is here. But there are these rumors out there. And to go with the thing in Hawaii, I would wonder how well this would be received this time around, all the mandate stuff. But more importantly, there are a lot of companies, small businesses, and the economy couldn't handle another shutdown. If you see the way that there are companies and businesses that have been hanging in there. I went to a restaurant the other day, a Moe's, and it was closed. And it just opened like a year ago. So there's, various places. I know there's an Italian meatball place my family and I have gone to. They've closed 2 of their locations. They only had 3. There's just all these restaurants and small businesses closing all over the place. One of them was in a mall, like a food court, where the place is just emptied out. So we know that we've all seen it. We saw it happen in San Francisco recently. I've been covering that on my other channel. And there are a lot of businesses that just won't survive another lockdown. And we know this. Like, it would just destroy the economy. And, there's a huge amount of money that flowed to the upper 1%, the billionaires, the ultra wealthy, during this period. And then, of course, commercial land, real estate's being bought up at a fraction of the rate in places like San Francisco and other places. And it just, this thing would devastate the system. If this is true, I don't know if it is or not. We'll see what happens. And with this thing in Hawaii, there are certain events that they stand the test of time more than other ones in the truth community. And this one is, this Hawaii fire is setting, people are just across the board. You see it in the woke community. You see it in, of course, the Cubies and the truth community. Just across the board, people are very highly suspicious of this thing in Hawaii. So much so, again, I covered this on my other channel, or maybe it was here, I don't know, where the governor came out and said, social media and media influencers suck and you shouldn't be listening to them. Just listen to the official story. So the official story isn't playing well. And we know this, right? It's just not, it's not being accepted by many more people. And there's a level of awareness now that I think it probably disturbs the controllers. Not that anything that's going to be done, but, you can't do certain things if the people don't believe in you. And when the more people that don't believe or have faith in the official story, the more the illusionary debt-based economic system and the rest of it are at threat of collapsing. And we're pretty close to that. Like, where there's the majority of people just are like, no, we don't believe this. And, it's crossing the demographics. It's crossing between the left and the right, the Dems and Republicans, the different racial demographics, and, these other, groups that people find themselves in. A lot of people in all those groups are calling BS all the time. Bull, boop, all the time. And so, things have changed. Like that song is probably going to be the number one song. Richmond from Richmond, Richmond north of Richmond, Washington D.C. We could have just said Washington. That song is crossing the lines of, lots of working class peoples of all demographics. It's an indicator that people have had enough, and whatever that means. I don't know what that means, but people are definitely becoming more and more aware. Some of these events where the official story is being questioned, and it's all the time now in the truth community, but some of them have a staying period, and they just rub more people the wrong way. And that's the Hawaii thing falls in that category. There's certain ones that just stand out, and people just don't believe this is. Everyone pretty much is getting the idea this is a land grab. I mean, this is just normal people are seeing that. And then all the other aspects of it, whether you believe in the direct energy stuff or any of these other different narratives, and none of those things matter. It just matters that even if this was an organic event and it happened naturally, or, just without governmental and intelligence community interference and planning, it was just something that organically, it happened organically. You can see they're being, taken advantage of. Even that priest, going back to that priest who seems to be from Hawaiian descent, he represents the invasion of the indigenous people on Hawaii. All these various places that were taken by force and military occupation and takeover and subjugation of the people. They're all brutal stories, and the religion played a big part of this. And the Catholic Church, and to say that the church was saved, but the houses of these indigenous people that are now being, taken from them, land that they've owned for thousands of years, it just sits wrong. It just sits in the wrong way with lots of people. So let's get back to the Trump and Rachel Maddow stuff here. So before we get to the horrible, funny, the really clueless thing that Rachel Maddow said, I turned on the news. I was flipping through the channels at lunch. And this clown, who's a Trump hater now, he's supposed to be a presidential historian, forget his name, doesn't matter. But in the corner here, they have this thing, indictment special. Today is Thursday, August 24th. You'll see this tomorrow on the 25th. So this would have already happened last night. But Trump's going to turn himself in tonight. It's the indictment special. And look at this power-studded, star-studded lineup, right? These ghoulish dudes here, right? This is Joy, whatever her last name is. Very joyless person. And she's really unwatchable. Like, her show is really bad. The way she conceptualizes things, the way she covers them. Ultra liberal, but that's not the biggest part of the issue. It's just really unwatchable. Rachel Maddow, we all know how bad she sucks. And Marcia Wallace, who used to be a Republican who was, a part of John McCain's campaign, is now this Trump-hating liberal. And, that this would be these, well, you got to see this. Look at this. Look at these heavy hitters. Look at these heavy hitters, these stars that are going to be on. This is must-see TV, right? Them talking about Trump's fourth indictment. At what point do you think people are going to be like, yeah, I don't care about this? After the second indictment or the third indictment, the fourth or the seventh? At what point is it just another indictment? Like, the first one wasn't well received. They ended up showing Trump on this network or CNN on Tucker Carlson, and he was saying BS and how much support he's getting, the whole thing. But this is the hilarious thing I want to show you. The dog that didn't bark, the dog that didn't bark, Trump's call for massive protests go unanswered. Woof. Woof, Rachel. Woof.
Leader does not snap his fingers and command a nationwide crippling uprising in his or her name. I mean, even in our country where he promised he would, where he promised that would happen, where he overtly, publicly tried to make it happen, it failed. He failed. He wanted that. He promised it. He was counting on it. And therefore, a lot of the country was counting on that being a consequence of this part of the process. It hasn't happened. The dog did not bark. And so
this is how clueless she is, right? That she's saying that Trump doesn't have the ability to get his supporters and fans to rally behind him and protest and gather and things like that. This is a Biden supporter, really a Hillary supporter more than even Biden. She still exhumes that corpse of Hillary Clinton every once in a while in her show. And, Biden and Hillary can't generate any kind of enthusiasm. Biden was having these lockdown, these events where he was having people sit in their cars and honk instead of applauding. And the cars were like spaced out, like they were social distance, even though people were in their cars. Remember those? I covered that in the election. He couldn't generate any enthusiasm, support. Hillary Clinton probably even much worse. I mean, hers was bad. Biden's was bad, but hers was worse. They couldn't generate a crowd. And so for her to be mocking Trump when she's on MSNBC, which is always second to Fox, and people are, the desired group is no longer watching mainstream news, Fox, MSNBC, or CNN. And so for her to be mocking Trump for not being able to draw a crowd or get the crowd to enthusiastically support him, I mean, he's got a much stronger enthusiastic base than any of these clowns. It's just completely clueless, right?
does sort of settle one big part of this existential question for us at this crime scene, right? This existential question for our country and our democracy, for our form of government. Will we be able to survive bringing criminal charges against this particular alleged criminal, given his political power and his hold on his followers?
Again, just an absolute liar here, because I don't think people are going to protest because they didn't protest Joe Biden's. People are on the edge, like I was talking about evil, where the left is considered evil by the right and the right is considered evil, and they're doing anything to stop it. I mean, what the Democrats did was they said, you're just wrong. Democracy doesn't work. We got to do anything in our power to make sure Trump doesn't win. And, that's what they did. And now it's coming back on them. And the Republicans are, saying the same thing with Biden, a second term, all these things. And so it makes for an interesting showdown. But what she's not saying here is that the country will survive Trump going to jail, but her network won't. Like her CNN and MSNBC will have nothing to talk about once Trump goes to jail. I mean, they've focused on Trump now since 2015. That's 8 years of being centered around Trump. It started more in 2016, but again, it was starting in 2015. They have had a business model where Trump is the center of all their BS. And they're unwilling to admit it, that their very survival as a media outlet depends on Trump being there for them to mock. And Jojo Magoo's candidacy, because if Trump goes to jail and Biden is reelected, they'll have no cover. They'll have no more excuses. And unless they constantly have a live jail cam and they have some sort of Big Brother-like show in prison where they're still trying to keep Trump alive, if he just disappears and goes to jail, they'll have nothing. There'll be a huge void in their life. They're so obsessed with him. So this is the experiment by RFK, running on the truth.
We're going to do a mass experiment, a new kind of mass experiment of what happens when you tell people the truth.
So I, have an issue with his addictions, his lust demon, and his addictions to substances, and then of course his horrific take on Palestine, which apparently he's going to have to deal with when he gets interviewed by Max Blumenthal. We'll see if he moderates that position. But, even the people that hate him and think he's a shill or whatever, even if he's saying this as a performance, this is not sincere. He's performing this way. This is the first time in history we've ever seen a candidate do this. And it's because of the truth community and the internet. And he is, again, not exactly like what we are as truthers. So he has his issues or whatever. He has his different way of being that. And whether it's sincere or a complete fake, we've never seen this before, where he's going out and talking about his addictions and his other issues and talking about things that other candidates don't in a more honest way and just telling the truth, at least whatever his version of it. And again, he might be a shill, he might be a setup, you can view that. None of that really matters, because it's just that this is being done in the show, in what I call the show.
This is a time to bring America back together. We have been torn apart, and if anyone can bring it back together, it's the Kennedys.
Why? Why would you say that? Like, if anybody is a Kennedy? That just doesn't make any sense at all.
I hope that what he can do is to break through by just being himself, being his honest self, very selfless, very focused on doing the right thing, and hopefully people will be able to see that. But we are absolutely up against a major media wall.
Okay, so I want to say something. Let me switch over to the voiceover here. The one thing I want to say about Kennedy, and I'm not re-endorsing him, I've made my position, I guess, somewhat clear on this. I like the way that he's affecting the show. But one thing none of us can deny in the truth community is if Kennedy became president, if Kennedy actually won the election, and regardless if he's a shill or a disinformation agent or he's not sincere in what he's doing or whatever his motivation is, if he won, it would be a validation of the truth community. What I was saying about Hawaii. It would mean that the majority of people are no longer trusting the mainstream narratives and media. And they're not accepting the normal candidates, because that would be Trump and Biden. Trump was a little bit more of his authentic self. Trump did this a little bit, except he wasn't a real truther. He didn't talk about things, like he didn't know the truther stuff. Like he was fed some of the narratives, but he never really was a truther in terms of, understanding the ideology and the framework and the narratives and the whole egregore of the truth community. Like he just flirted with it for his own purposes. And, Kennedy knows his stuff, whether he's sincere or not, whether he believes in it or not. You can debate that. But you can't debate that if he wins, he'll be running on a somewhat truther platform and running as a different sort of candidate. And that would mean that the old paradigm is dead and the old news media's effect would be, non-existent. It would be a huge win for all of us, a validation of anybody who's questioning the official story in a way different than the normal people used to. I mean, we're just out now calling them liars and disinformation agents and, part of a global cabal or whatever. And lots more people are believing that. And that would mean that over half the people, or at least the ones that vote, no longer have any faith in the system. And it would be, a huge statement. Regardless if anything else happens, that would be a big, a win. It would mean that the mainstream media and the political parties are so limp-dicked and impotent that they have no hold on the American populace anymore. That people have moved past believing in the media narratives and their ability to influence what people think and say, regardless of how much censorship they do or how much of anything they've done. It would mean that, people ignored all of that and the pushback and elected him, even if he comes close. Like even if he gets 40% of the vote, or he, flirts with winning, even if he almost beats Joe Biden against a rigged system that the DNC is rigging against him. I mean, even if he, comes within, anything he does that would be considered a legitimate candidate. If he was a legitimate truther candidate, that would be a win for us, right? We would be, again, it doesn't matter whether he's a legitimate truther or not. It matters that the support behind him and the lack of support behind the old functional candidates is extraordinarily slim and non-existent. And it would mean that there's been a transformation towards a more truthful way of viewing what's going on now. What I've said over and over again is the system can't be saved and shouldn't be saved. And so that's not what I'm concerned about, and who's president or not, and any of these things. But in terms of the show and in terms of understanding the power dynamics, any success that Kennedy has is a win for the truth community. And, sometimes, like, look what Howard Dean did. Howard Dean failed to win the Democratic nomination. If you don't know who Howard Dean is, he's a guy who used the internet and almost won the Democratic nomination. He was like a governor of Maine or New Hampshire or something like that. And he was the first candidate to use the internet. And it changed the way politics have been, run forever. And, if they had to acknowledge the truth community as a demographic, I mean, unless they're just going to out and out, like, totally rig it and do in ways that, not even pretending to count the votes it just openly rigging the system. And if they have to do that, then it's, they're collapsing the system anyway. That's a moment of truth in itself. And they're already doing that. They did it against Bernie Sanders twice in the DNC and already against RFK Jr. And so all these things are wins for us. I got a few comments to get to, so let me get to these things here. Okay, so I said something about a come to Jesus moment for RFK Jr., but I said, not the way Christians think about it. A coming to God moment or coming to truth. And a person wrote this: not all of us poo-poo the idea of coming to Jesus moment. Your disdain is palpable. Well, I didn't have disdain. What I was talking about is a spiritual awakening is deeper and more profound than a religious, having a religious awakening, right? Being a religious person is a stepping stone. It's like being in kindergarten. But going to first grade where you learn to read is, higher than kindergarten, which I've said that before. And so, I got a number of people who reacted to some of the things I said that way. But, there's nothing wrong with religion. I don't want to criticize religion if it's all you can do, if you don't have the capacity to move to the next level. And this isn't talking down to you or ridiculing you or whatever. And that's for you to decide. If you can't reach up and become a spiritual person and all you could do is religion, you don't have the capability for abstract thought. And, most people like that wouldn't be watching me anyway. But, it's do what you can do. And, it's part of the Sajmark system of meditation that you're not supposed to criticize people's religion, because it might be all that they can do. And so I don't criticize it the way that people think. But what I do say is, I was talking about Master Chargy saying the lowest part of the higher, which is spirituality, is higher than the lowest part of the highest part of the lower, which is the materialistic world, and, with religion being a part of that. Materialism, if you live just a materialistic life, you're on a lower level than someone who starts to even flirt with the idea that God's inside of them and starts to do work to connect with God. Even if it's just a small movement, it's on a higher level. And there are higher levels everywhere. Like, people get upset when you say the WNBA sucks. People usually who don't watch the WNBA but are just liberal feminists or whatever. But the WNBA is not as good as the NBA, as the NBA professional, minor leagues, right? The various leagues that exist, European leagues, and then college basketball and some high school teams. I don't know if there's probably lots of high school teams that WNBA teams couldn't beat, right? And so it's substantially, not as good. And that isn't being sexist or misogynistic. That's just a fact that the women in these WNBA teams couldn't beat any of these, even some of these Drew League. I mean, a lot of these various summer leagues. And, there's a lot of men who would be the best player. There's probably 1 million men in America, maybe even more. Probably like 10 million, 20 million men who, if they were able to play in the WNBA, they would be the best player in the WNBA, right? And so, that's the same thing I'm talking about. That it's a fact that spirituality, connecting to God internally as opposed to having a religion or being a materialistic person or having a religion where there's a middleman between you and God, that being a spiritual person is higher. You're on a higher level than that. And everyone should know that, admit that, right? If all you can do is a religion, or if you don't, have the energy and the effort to work towards connecting with God, that's fine. That's your choice. But realize that there's a higher level of existence that you're not accessing to. You're not accessing. When I, started doing meditation, started doing the Sajmark practice, I realized that I was functioning on a much higher level. Like I was a low functioning person, and now I was able to do things. I was able to tolerate boredom and monotony and, all kinds of things, hold a job, sustain relationships, all things I couldn't do before, because it's a higher level of functioning. And it's a choice. It's an effort that you have to make. So there's that. And then I got a bunch of people, that's not Britney Spears. I can't believe people haven't figured this out yet. Right? And then a second one from the same person. That's a boy emoji with a smile, some kind of weird emoji. Male, not female. Sad you all can't see it. This is all about Britney and the short video I made about Britney dancing. Britney might have been replaced. I don't know, because I didn't know anything. I missed the whole Britney's thing. Like I heard a few songs of Britney's on the radio, but maybe once or twice. I didn't like them. And, I didn't have a TV and I didn't have cable during the whole Britney Spears thing that was going on. So I pretty much missed the whole thing. So I wouldn't have even recognized her. Like I kind of knew what she looked like, but like she wasn't like Madonna or some of these other celebrities that, I would recognize their picture. If you show me a picture of Britney Spears during that time, I've been like, is that her? I would have been doubtful about whether it was her or not. And so I don't know. Like it could be somebody different. I don't have the ability to judge. I don't think it is because, whatever. I don't think they get anything by keeping Britney going, like other than distractions. Because Britney, doesn't have any real influence over anybody but dopes. All she could be used as is for a distraction. They got plenty of celebrities for that. Why replace Britney Spears? What's the reason for doing that? But let's say they did. Okay, whatever. It means nothing. And they replaced her with a dude. I don't know why, but they did it. I guess I would know why, but, or maybe, they're saying she was a dude all along. I don't know. But none of it matters, right? Britney's influence and only thing that she could be used as, like I say, as a distraction. What else can Britney do in terms of changing what's going on, right? I mean, there's a degradation happening that's happening outside of just Britney. And, her fans are mostly dopey people and, whatever. She's not getting them to accept something or do something that they wouldn't ordinarily do on their own. And so, the whole thing seems relatively silly. But anyways, my voice is going a little bit, so I'm going to end this one here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely born for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.